So this is attempt number 2 for us tonight, because for reasons unknown to us, we tried to live stream, everything was going hunky-dory, and then it wasn't. But we're 99.99% certain it wasn't on our end, so what gives, YouTube? Anyways, hi. This is the Wise Souls. We've got some stuff to talk about tonight, and Beth, I want to start with you, if I may.
Yes.
We have a business, yes?
Yes.
Multiples, actually, depending on how you look at it. We have opinions, yes?
Correct.
Okay. What's the one thing we never mix?
Those two things together.
Business and opinions. So I kind of want to start there tonight because, once again, somebody's mixing business and opinions. And you would think that with things like the whole Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light thing that people would figure out not to do this. But once again, we have a CEO. This time it is the Hims and Hers guy who decided to step in it on Twix and cost his company a whole bunch of money. So I want to talk about that. And this is in relation to what's going on with the Columbia protests. And I have a lovely little map to show everybody that shows how many arrests have been had. So that's fun. Also, I want to talk about what's going on in Chicago with teachers because they're going through a contract negotiation. And that's really interesting. And then I also have 2 stories that I ran across when I was going through stuff today that on the surface are not related to each other, not even necessarily like headline stories per se. One might be, but I think in their own way, they talk a little bit about a potential problem that we have here in the United States for sure, and probably pretty much all of Western society. So I'd like to get into that.
Mm-hmm. All right. We should probably introduce our son.
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Patience.
Whoa, that was a terrible sound. That was me accidentally ramming
Did your
my
soul
leg into
just
something.
exit your body?
Yes.
That was bad. Are you okay?
I'm laughing.
Do I have to call somebody? Do you need a Band-Aid?
That was just me crossing my legs and trying not to run into the table, and instead I ran into the thing that connects the mic arm onto the desk.
It sounded like a dog barking.
All right.
But like...
So we already blew the first chance at this show tonight, and we're really starting out on a hot note right now.
Mother, do we need to call a priest?
Oh, nice one, son. So the smart butt making the jokes is Eli. That's our son. I'm Dan. You already know me. The loud one, who I'm pretty sure doesn't have a soul anymore, is Beth. We're the Wise Souls, or perhaps the Wise Butt Souls tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody breathe.
Oh
my god.
All right. Let's get into it, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right, let's start with this whole Hims and Hers thing. All right. So, this is from Fox Business. This starts off on Friday, and then I have a little bit of additional information for today. Okay. So Hims and Hers Health saw its stock slide Friday during trading as its CEO praised the, quote, moral courage of anti-Israeli campus protesters and encouraged them to apply for jobs at the health and wellness company. The stock is up 16.8% for the year, but down 4% from a year ago. On Friday, it lost 8% of its value amid the controversy. It did gain back just under 1 point in after-hours trading, but he still kind of tanked it. Specifically, what he twixt was moral courage greater than college degree. If you're currently protesting against the genocide of working Palestinian people and for your university's divestment from Israel, keep going, it's working. There are plenty of companies and CEOs eager to hire you regardless of university discipline. And then he added a link to the Hims and Hers careers page. Interestingly enough, in response, Jordan Ellis, who apparently runs Goodnight Mates, said once again, if anyone has canceled their hymn subscription due to their founder CEO's anti-Semitic remarks, your first month of Goodnight Mates Sexual Health Solutions is on us. Our way of thank you for standing on the right side of history. So in response to a CEO sticking his nose into political realms, another CEO sticks his nose into political realms.
Yes.
Also, the way the company is named almost sounds like some like hedge fund or something. It's like Sexual Health Solutions. It's like professional.
Fair. But Hims and Hers is catchier. Let's see.
Oh.
All right. So today, Hims and Hers CEO walks back praise for anti-Israel protesters after the stock drops.
Whoops.
Hims and Hers founder Andrew Dudum said Sunday his previous comments offering support for anti-Israeli protesters on college campuses were, quote, misconstrued by some. Not sure how, but okay. He says the last few days have been a disheartening reflection on just how divisive a time we live in. I'd like to clarify a few things because my words have become misconstrued by some. I in no way condone or support acts of threats, violence, anti-Semitism, intimidation, and there is absolutely no justification for violence on our campuses. Every student deserves to feel safe without fear and harm. I am tired of the word feel. How about we just be safe rather than feel it?
Correct.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Everything is feel now. Tired of feel. Might have to go on a rant on that later. Except I kind of already did.
You did.
Well, whatever. Anyways, I'm deeply saddened that my support for peaceful protests has been interpreted by some as encouraging violence, intimidation, or bigotry of any kind. And then it talks about stuff we've already talked about. If we look at Market Watch, the stock going into Friday closed at 1224.
No doubt that
Why?
anti-Semitic,
I muted you.
American protests on college campuses.
There we go. Okay.
They just really want to serve you ads.
They do, and I'm kind of tired of it. So we'll just close those tabs. Okay. On Thursday, the stock closed at 1224. Closed Friday, had lost almost $1. And closed today, Monday, it had only gained back about 40 cents of its loss.
Oof.
So he cost people money. And what did he cost people money over? A bunch of people getting arrested. Because that's what's happening at these college campuses. This is courtesy of Associated Press. This is kind of a heat map that shows where the universities are that have protests. And the bigger the dot you see, the more arrests that have happened. So some big ones like UT Austin, they've arrested 136. If we got to zoom in a little bit because there's a lot going on in New York, but if we look at Columbia itself, 220. So that's the one that's been big in the news. State University of New York, 132. That's pretty big too. Lots of people getting arrested. And we've got a CEO sticking his nose in it. Now, I've got to say that I'm kind of getting sick and tired of these corporations just going in on whatever the flavor of the month is, which is kind of what it seems, and tanking their businesses. I mean, I don't hold stock in Hims, but if I did, I'd be ticked off right now.
Yeah.
Because these things don't mix. In my opinion, if you are a business, you need to be Switzerland when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the CEO can't have his opinions. He's a human being. He's allowed to have them. I don't care what his opinions are. And if anybody out there thinks that I'm on the side of Israel, if you watch last week's clip where we talk about freedom of speech, I was vehemently against this whole law that's being passed right now that broadens the definition of anti-Semitism, because I think it gets in the way of free speech. So I don't have a problem with what this guy says. I have a problem with the fact that he attaches it to his corporation. Stop it. If you're a CEO, stop it. This is stupid. Beth?
No, I completely agree. Like you said, flavor of the month, it seems like CEOs or people in power that are connecting their own personal viewpoints and attaching them to their business seem to be trying to go after what's popular in the media. And the point I made earlier for the live that never made it to you was that the big fallacy for me in this particular instance is the CEO of Hims and Hers is going through and trying to perhaps originally gain market share by making this statement. But the people that are protesting are in college, and most college age students are somewhere between 18 and 22, depending on how long they're there. Could be older, could be younger. But people who are 22 years old, at least in the United States, are most likely still on their parents' insurance plan. So they're not going to be a Hims or Hers customer. And I think that's very important. Nobody actually sat down and analyzed the point that he was trying to make or what he was trying to quote unquote gain by making this statement. Because if he wasn't actually trying to gain anything by making this statement, he shouldn't be the CEO.
Agreed. And this just occurred to me too, regardless of what insurance plan they're on and how they're going to pay for the stuff or what else. If we're being completely honest, if you're in this age group and you're seeking out this product, you have bigger problems.
Well, that's true.
Because nothing that Hims or Hers sells should necessarily be something that a college age student should be chasing after.
Correct. Well, I think they do offer like anti-anxiety meds, and maybe for the people who live on campus or whatever that have to deal with the protests, perhaps they need those anti-anxiety meds.
I mean, like
I was thinking more of the sexual health and hair loss product.
Correct.
so all that stuff, that's you probably don't need that at that age range, but
I would hope not.
yeah.
Otherwise,
Feel bad for you if you do.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's bigger hormonal issues going on there.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
Yeah,
Anyways.
you probably don't need Viagra at like 22.
Yeah.
Though I can understand the mental health like products and stuff that I can get behind. Yeah.
Well, I don't think these protests are helping their mental health any.
No.
No.
I mean, they're getting all worked up about stuff that, quite honestly, does not affect them, especially at their age and their location.
Yeah.
But, so the whole thing, and we kind of went into this last week, I think our view on it, I asked the question, why? Why are they doing this? And the interwebs was nice enough to give me some answers, too. That was one of our most commented shorts of last week. And it was about 50-50. Where some people gave me good answers and then some other people decided that I was Satan for asking the question. And that's okay. Again, have your opinions. Doesn't bother me at all. But I'm never going to attach my opinions to my business. But, I was about to say I don't know why these CEOs keep doing this stuff. But I guess it's not that hard to figure out. Because if you look at the age of these CEOs, they're in about that time when they were raised up in an era that was starting to really push this idea of social justice.
Yes.
So is it necessarily a surprise that these people are now bringing that mentality into their workplace? Probably not. But call me old-fashioned, I don't think they should. I'm a very opinionated person. I think you two know that. The interwebs will figure that out the more we do this, if they hadn't already figured it out from the first version of this channel. But when it comes to business, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care who you marry, where you live. It doesn't matter to me. I have a product. You want to buy the product. Let's do business.
Yeah.
That is all that matters in that scenario. And then at the end of the day, we shake hands, you go enjoy the product, I enjoy the money you just gave me, and everybody is happy.
And furthermore, and I made this point on the stream that shall not be named, that honestly, I feel like some of these CEOs are doing themselves a disservice because they're kind of like fudging their own beliefs a little bit just because they want to get public opinion points, and that not only does their companies a disservice, but they're also doing themselves a disservice because they're painting an image that they may or may not want to actually paint for themselves to the public eye.
That's fair.
True.
I actually have to ask the question whether or not they really have opinions, whether or not they really have a moral compass, whether or not they've really figured out what it is that they stand for. But that's not just CEOs, that's pretty much everybody now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do we know, I mean, really know, that have a very set moral compass? I can probably count it on one hand, to be honest with you. There's not, even in our lives, there's not that many people where we go, that person is unwavering. I know exactly who they are.
Yeah,
That's
what
true.
they believe.
To be fair, in real life, we don't often correspond with people. But some of that, it's not that we're antisocial or
everybody's
agoraphobic
busy.
or anything. It's because we work for ourselves and we're kind of contained in our own little area.
Sure, but we still know people, and we have
Yes.
extended family and everything else. And I'm not trying to throw any specific person under the bus or anything like that. But truly, how many people does anybody know anymore that has like a really sound moral compass?
Well, I would
It's-
say in most people in the past, I'll go so far as to say 10 years, because that gives two different political powers being in charge. And we also threw a pandemic in the middle of that. But through all of that, I think a lot of people's opinions and belief systems have changed drastically just because of what the world has been going through. And then now, obviously, we have inflation on top of it. And we've talked about before, if I can go off on just a small little tangent, as a family, we've talked about the fact that most people want to see everything as very black and white. And unfortunately, that's not how the world works. But, wow, okay, got a frog in my throat there. Okay, so what I was saying is there's very often people look at things as black and white and no shades of gray, but the world very much lives in shades of gray. And if we're going to talk about these protesters and the fact that they obviously think they're doing the right thing, the bigger issue at hand to me has always been the fact that if there is a war going on and people are dying, that in and of itself is bad. I don't honestly care which side is to blame. If there is death being had, I'm not okay with that. And I had asked again in the stream that didn't make it live if either of you knew the significance of today, because it is a significant day. And I believe Eli said no. I don't know if you answered.
I did not answer, and it is not coming to me.
Today is actually the International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Oh, yes.
So if we're going to be talking about all these protesters and everybody saying people shouldn't be dying, shouldn't we also acknowledge the fact that in history, this is the day we should be remembering the fact that millions of Jews also died?
No, that's fair.
I feel like that point should be made.
No, you're absolutely right. It should be made because, but this is, they're going to sweep that under the rug that was in the past, and
that was glossed over completely, I'm sure, in mainstream media today.
We have a new flavor of the month at the moment, but the flavor of the month kind of ties in. I wanted to not to blow over what you're saying, because I agree it should have a bigger place, but to keep our discussion going. You were talking about how the world is grays, and we've talked about that and we agree. But I'd like to amend that definition just a little bit, because as you were speaking it, I was thinking something that I think would expand on that truth. Because we were talking about how we got down this road because the CEO were questioning whether or not he really knows what he believes, or if it's just changing it with the wind.
Yes.
But then you talked about, the world exists in grays, which I agree with. But if we tie that in with my comments about how few people have an actual like set moral compass and a set of beliefs and whatnot. I would argue, and pay attention to this, son, because I think this will help you as you move into adulthood. You have to have a set of beliefs and values that are unwavering to help you navigate the gray.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are missing now. They just go with whatever it is at the moment, whatever end of that grayscale spectrum you're on for any given topic, rather than allowing your set beliefs to guide you along that path. So they play ping pong.
Yeah, let me clarify. When I am talking about things existing in shades of gray, I don't think that it's that is an excuse inherently for people to continue to flip-flop back and forth. That's not what I mean by shades of gray. What I mean is everything is usually much more complicated than it seems at the surface. So again, if we're talking about the war between Israel and Palestine, it's not as simple as one side or another to me, because ultimately it conflicts with my unwavering belief that murdering people is wrong.
That's fair. Do you have any more thoughts on the matter, son?
Not particularly, no.
All right. Well, I guess I just have to leave it with this personally. With all the different things that we've discussed, you know, we've brought in the protests and the Holocaust and the everything else. The bottom line is that if you're running a business, you have to have loyalty to that business first with regard to how you portray yourself publicly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it continues to baffle me and disappoint me. And you'd think I'd be used to it now, but I'm not. Every time one of these businesses does something stupid that wrecks what they've got going on, because it's not just impacting them, it's impacting their shareholders as well. And again, I don't care what this guy's opinions are. He's allowed to have them. He should have them, but they need to be expressed in his own time and certainly not attached to the business.
Yeah.
But when he crosses the line and says, we'll hire you, that's going too far, because number one, no, he won't. No, he won't.
He's not, let's be real,
words.
he's not in charge of hiring anyway.
No.
Yeah.
And let's be honest too, if at the top of your resume is, Columbia University protester, are you really hiring that person? Are you really?
Yeah.
Or do you want somebody that can actually do the job? I would hope you'd want somebody that actually do the job. But you tell me, Andrew Dudham, or was it Andrew? I don't remember. Mr. Dudham. Is that really what you want? Is that kind of person? Or do you want somebody that will do the job? I don't know. I would think you'd want somebody to do the job, but I'm not convinced.
Ultimately, the person who's most qualified for the job should have the job. But again, that's another discussion as well.
It is. So speaking of people who maybe have jobs they're not qualified for.
Sure.
All right. Let's talk about Chicago teachers.
Are you using Fox? Oh, no, it's not Fox. I was going to say, are you using Fox again?
I am.
Oh, it's a CNN.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's a CNN feed that they have there.
Aha.
So Chicago teachers are currently demanding $50 billion in increases that include pay hikes, abortions, and migrant accommodation.
Wait.
What?
The teachers want money for abortions?
Yeah, so let me read here.
I think I need an explanation.
Yes. So the Chicago Teachers Union, CTU for short, is negotiating a new contract with the public school system and is understood to be calling for an extra $50 billion to pay for wage hikes, as well as other demands such as fully paid abortions for its members, new migrant services and facilities, and a host of LGBT-related requirements and training in schools. To put the figure in context, the total base tax receipts for the state of Illinois last year was $50.7 billion.
Well, that's unattainable. Let's just be real.
Exactly. But let's continue. Well, they can make that up with an extra sales tax or something, I'm sure.
Right. Okay.
All right. The incredible demands are being made despite its members delivering underwhelming results for its students, with only 21% of the city's 8th graders being proficient readers. According
21?
Yes. According to the last nation's report card, which provides national results about student performance. Now, I will say I did research that in preparation for this show, and I looked at Nation's report card. The newest data they have is 2022. It is 2 years old. However, that 21% figure is correct. But note that it is 2-year-old data. It's not like real time or anything.
I keep losing my voice. I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
Do the school systems still do proficiency tests for 12th grade, like before you graduate?
I don't know. Okay. It's not covered in this story, but we can look that up later.
I was curious. Yeah. And there's probably also a very high percentage of those 8th graders that aren't proficient that don't even make it to graduation because of that.
Undoubtedly. And if anybody's wondering why we have a teenager sitting in the room with us and we don't know what's going on in high schools, it's because he's homeschooled.
Yes.
So we are not up to date on it, nor do we necessarily want to be, because we're doing our own thing.
Right.
Anyways, to continue.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The union's demands have not been made public, but a leaked document sheds light on the demands. Union President Stacey Davis Gates' audacious plans call for members to bank at least 9% wage increases each year through fiscal year 2028. The average salary of a teacher in Chicago public schools is $93,000, according to the research. Therefore, the average teacher's pay will increase to $144,000 by the 2027-2028 school year. That figure would equate to more than double the median household income in Chicago.
That's insane.
Uh-huh. So, additional stuff. Last year, the school district spent more than $21,000 per student, which is above the national average of $14,300. Gates' plan also calls for teachers and counselors to be paid a stipend of $1,000 per student per semester when they are assigned a number of students above the contractual limits. They want a retirement bonus of $2,500 for employees with 30 years of service. What else?
They're just adding things on, like pork for bills that go through. Okay. Oh yeah, here's the good one. The leaked document also addresses disparities in healthcare, which call for 100% coverage for abortion care, 100% coverage for benefits for fertility, including storage of embryos. The union also wants more taxpayer funds to go to migrants in its far-reaching plan, earmarking $2,000 to be given to each migrant to help with academics, transportation, and mental health counseling. Union wants each of the 646 public schools to have a newcomer liaison for new students, as well as migrant students, and unused school facilities to be converted into housing for migrants. Well, they've already done that in other states.
There is also a host of other provisions, including making sure workers and educators are trained annually on LGBTQ plus issues as a qualification for their job.
I have quite a few things to say, but I know Eli wanted to talk, so.
What you got, son?
So, actually, you go ahead first because I need to process it through.
Okay. So first off, I feel like the teachers, they already have a union, and the fact that they were already making, what did you say, like 93,000 was the average? That's ridiculously high. And I know cost of living in Chicago is more because it's a major metropolitan area. I understand that. But if we're looking at Chicago as a whole, there's a lot of other issues, and I understand because of those issues that being a teacher is probably not a well sought after job, but if they want all this money, wouldn't it be better if they had things like people working with the migrants for like English as a second language? Like, let's put more into that particular area so they can actually understand everybody else in their classroom. Or let's put more money into security, not just so people can feel safe, but so they can actually be safe. Because we already know that Chicago leads the nation in gun violence. There's just so many things that if they really wanted to improve upon their situation, they could do. Besides, I don't even see the point if their salaries are going up by that much. Say they actually got all of their demands. What's the point of the $2,500 bonus that they get? That's like a tax return. Give me a break. That doesn't even make sense. Oh, if you make it to 30 years, you're gonna get an extra $2,000. In 30 years, that extra $2,000 isn't gonna pay for one car payment, let alone anything else. Okay, my rant is over.
You ready?
Yes. I was gonna say is that, and I'm tackling kind of a slightly different subject here, but no, related to this, but I'm bringing in something else that you kind of referenced here. It's the it's like the fact that students really aren't proficient as of right now. I feel like, honestly, asking for this like kind of like a huge raise, I feel like is a little bit unreasonable, considering the fact that like students are some students are really bad at like English or math or other different types of subjects. So either there's something going on where the teachers aren't really conveying the message properly, and
they're
honestly,
not teaching.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm apt to believe that because there are teachers who are actually going on TikTok screaming into their like phones. I've seen one where like they were like calling their students stupid, and maybe some students aren't like, you know, paying attention in class. I mean, that's bound to happen, but there's a certain point as a teacher where you still have to try to find a way of actually conveying that information across. So I feel like you can't blame the students for being bad at math if you're probably not teaching it, or you're just not teaching it right.
Correct.
Well, Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid very famously said, "No such thing bad student, only bad teacher."
Yeah.
So I would buy into that. But to your point, talking about the idea of a raise being unreasonable, it is 100% unreasonable, because, you know, I'm in a world where if you're contracted to do a job, do the job.
Yes.
And I'm kind of tired of hearing about how this or that school is underfunded and they need more of this or that or the other thing, when you can't show me that you're making the most out of what you have. And I know you can make the argument that in so many cases you don't have the support at home, so you don't have the parents pushing these children everything. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, you're still put in a position to get a result that you're not getting.
Correct.
So why should I pay you more for that?
Exactly.
And this isn't me trying to impugn the entire, educational world. I know there are good teachers out there. We talked about that last week too. But if you are one of the worst districts in the nation, which the results point to, again, I went through all of the results earlier today, they're not good.
No.
I will say there's a couple of areas where they have trended up over a couple of years, but, you know, they've trended up and they're still underwater. So there's a long, long way to go. And does that justify them almost doubling their salary? I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree with you, and honestly, I think it's a matter of. This is me slightly repeating myself, but it's just kind of a. Why should I give you more money when, quite honestly, there is a big chunk of Gen Z who in high school right now who really aren't proficient in English, and you're not trying to do something about it. You're just screaming,
pay me more,
and screaming into your phone on TikTok that all of my students are stupid. Like, what? No, no, I don't if that's the route you're taking, find another career. That maybe that's a harsh thing of saying, but if it's genuinely to a point where you're actually trying to like say everybody around you is like the
problem,
the problem, not you, find another career. This is not the one for you.
Fair. So here's a hot/controversial take. What is the one thing, the one word that for at least a decade now, probably even longer, the media is so quick to apply to teachers? What's the label that they like to give them? The positive word. Begins with an H.
Oh, heroes.
Yes.
Yes.
Teachers are heroes, right?
Yes.
We hear that all the time. Hero teacher does their job is the headline. Okay.
I'll be honest. I don't agree with that. I mean, some teachers are good at their job.
But let me continue with my point if I may. Okay. So let's just go with that argument that teachers are heroes. What is the one quality that the traditional hero archetype will have? They'll have many, but there's one that I'm thinking of.
That they're putting the other person's needs to an extent before their own. Like firefighters risk their own lives to save other people.
Yeah, selflessness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. So if we're going to call them teachers, then I think they need to have
Heroes,
a little...
you mean? We already call them teachers.
Well, I'm not even sure we can call them teachers, to be honest with you in some
That's
cases.
a good point.
There.
All right. So that was a slip that actually made a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
But no, if we're going to call them heroes, then I think they need to have some heroic qualities to them.
Yes.
And it seems to me with these demands that are being made, selflessness is not one of the qualities that they have. So I don't know. So yeah, are they teachers?
My opinion, no. What strikes me so much, and I know I've already brought this up, but it's just the fact these people are literally just screaming in social media, all of my students are stupid, they're dumb. No.
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, do your job. You're supposed to prevent that. You could probably look at a trend, and chances are you'll probably find out that I don't know the actual stats of this. This is more so a mere guess, but it's an educated guess, so I could be entirely wrong. But you could probably look at like trends of proficiency in certain topics, and I think it would actually go down over the years for like Gen Z.
Oh, for sure.
like
the pandemic did not help that at all, though.
No, and now frankly, now all the teachers are kind of bad at their job and stupid.
Well, no,
stupid,
let's not paint with a broad brush strokes.
Yeah, I don't think we can
Well,
say
not all the teachers, but I mean, just
I
a
get
good chunk.
I get what you're trying to say.
You were just complaining that a teacher was saying that all of their students are stupid.
Sorry, yeah,
and
no.
then you turned around and say all of the teachers are stupid. I don't.
Sorry.
Let's
My bad.
rephrase.
Well, look, I don't want you to apologize, but I want you to think through. This is part of the exercise of what we do here.
Yeah.
Is to be able to have a discussion as a family so we can kind of correct things as we go too.
Right.
So one of the things that you want to be careful to do is not paint with brush strokes that are too broad, because again, I'm not going to go out and say that every teacher is a horrible teacher.
That's not what I meant.
But,
sorry.
Yeah. But I do think it is valid to call into question what the motivations are of a large portion of them when they make outrageous demands. They want to be called heroes, and the media is real quick to call them heroes, but then they don't exhibit heroic qualities.
Yeah. Let me rephrase. Not all the teachers, but a decent proportion have kind of over time become bad at their job, and they're trying to blame it on the students as opposed to like
I would agree with that.
Self-accountability.
I think that is just a reflection or a mirror of what's going on in society again, and I believe it got much worse after the pandemic, but I believe the American society as a whole is very quick to try to take the easiest route for everything right now. And if that easiest route is blaming all of your problems on someone else, then why wouldn't they do that?
And furthermore, I will agree that children are children. Like, they're going to not pay attention. There's going to be problem people in class. There's going to be people who are tough to teach. That's going to be the case. There's going to be some people who would rather be on their phone all day than actually try to learn something. Okay, correct. That is fair enough. But you still have a certain obligation as a teacher to, regardless, actually try and teach them and get the message across.
Well, yeah, and it's a contract, too. Yeah. They're in an actual contract.
Yes. Oh, hi, Kat. Anyways, as I was saying, if you kind of look, even some of like the more like problematic people in class do end up going out of it with at least some broad level of knowledge. At least it's like okay enough. Like the teachers at least do an okay enough job to the point where they're actually proficient. Now we're starting to see less of that, and they're trying to use the excuse of, oh, the children are just bad, they're not paying attention. That's been the case for years. What's the excuse if the other teachers can handle it and you can't?
I would agree with that.
That's fair.
Yeah, throughout history, we can go back generations and generations, and I have stories from my parents of stuff that happened when they were in public schools, and I'm sure you do as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, it wasn't, kids acting out wasn't new in my generation. It wasn't new in our parents' or our grandparents' generation. It's been going on for a long time. But again, I think the bigger difference now is that nobody wants to take accountability for anything in their lives.
No. And in the realm of school and learning, we've talked in the past, the three of us, and I've asked the question, why is it that we're so quick as parents to just hand our children over to relative strangers and say, here, teach them, raise them. And then, you get results like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you've got you've got failure.
Yeah.
And you've got failure, and they're asking for more money to hand you that failure.
And it isn't even just the teachers who aren't taking accountability and stuff. There's it can go to the school administration. There's a lot of school administration school nowadays that are not taking accountability for anything. You can have children are constantly bullied. School does nothing about it because nobody wants to take responsibility for it. Nobody wants to put up a fuss. Everybody just wants to do their job, go home, go to McDonald's, whatever, watch down lights.
But they're not even doing their job.
Yeah, no, they're not doing their job.
Well, and there's not accountability in the home either. The parents so often, especially in some of these inner cities and whatnot, they're just not connected enough with their children. So that's a problem in and of itself. But again, I don't see how that translates into why we should take a failing school district and hand them more money to continue to fail.
Yeah,
correct.
If they handed me a plan, if I was in Chicago, and they said, here's what we're gonna do. It's bullet pointed. It's dated, it's accountable. This is how we justify our money. At least then we could have a discussion.
Yes.
There's nothing in this, at least that we've seen so far, that actually justifies why they deserve this money.
They want more money for being complacent, and I don't agree with it.
Yeah. The cuz reason.
Yeah. Cuz, no.
Yeah.
Be better at your job, then we'll talk. Otherwise, no.
Exactly. You're hired to do a job, do the job.
Yeah.
Correct.
Don't be complacent about it.
Also, kind of like the CEO in the last segment, the teachers are very much going off of the popular trends or the popular buzzwords or whatever you want to call it that is in the media. And I'm not saying that these things don't require some, what's the word I'm looking for, some analyzation or whatever. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the teachers union. But they're talking about things like abortion rights, and they're talking about LGBTQ, and they're talking about all these things that really don't have anything to do with the educational system in and of itself.
Yeah.
short of maybe talking about sex ed, but I don't think just the teachers that talk about sex ed are really warranted $50 billion either in additional funding.
No. Back in my day, that wasn't even a topic that was covered in school.
No.
Your parents handled that.
Correct.
Weird, I know. All right. Well, I guess we keep an eye on what's going on in Chicago and see if they get all of their demands. If they do, I'm not sure how they're going to pay for it, so that'll be fun too. But good news, we don't live in Chicago.
Yes.
Good news for you, Eli. You're homeschooled. Are you thankful now that you're homeschooled?
Yes.
Good boy. All right, let's dig into the last thing of the evening, shall we?
All right.
So I have two stories that in and of themselves are not related.
It's a good start.
Eli saw the headline.
Yes.
But I think they might speak to a larger problem, which I'll address. So let me get through the two stories, and then I'll tell you why I think we should talk about them.
Okie doke.
All right, so naked Florida woman arrested after breaking into neighbor's home, leaving her own children alone at home. Haley Blunt, 24, charged with burglary, criminal mischief, and child neglect. Florida woman, as opposed to Florida man, was arrested after she allegedly broke into a neighbor's home while she was naked and left her children unattended at home. We already know this. Officers responded shortly before noon Wednesday to a home, to a report of a burglary in progress. When officers arrived, a victim told them an unknown person, later identified as Blunt, knocked on the door, but when she asked who was there, nobody would answer. Blunt then reportedly went into the home's sliding glass door and again began to knock, but still would not disclose who she was when the victim asked. The victim was on the phone with 911 dispatch when Blunt broke a window near the front door and entered the home. Officers then arrived at the home when the victim met them outside. After officers approached the front door, they located Blunt nude and bleeding from injuries she sustained while breaking the window and entering the home. Blunt was transported to a hospital, treated for her wounds, booked into jail. Investigation into the incident revealed Blunt lived in a nearby home and left her two young children unsupervised while she broke into the neighbor's home, which added a child neglect charge. Children were found, later turned over to a family member. So keep that one in mind.
Okay. Kind of hard to forget.
From Scanner News, gunman's weapon jams while trying to shoot Pennsylvania pastor during Sunday service.
Wow. All right.
Suspect identified as 26-year-old Bernard Jr. Polite. That's a funny name.
Polite.
In that situation. Walked up to Pastor Glenn Germany during a sermon at Jesus' Dwelling Place Church. Polite aimed a firearm directly at Germany, but the weapon failed to fire. Suspect then pursued the pastor as he fled for cover behind the pulpit. Polite was then subdued by a congregant who took away the gun. I'm thankful to God that I'm still here because he definitely pulled the trigger, Germany said. The pastor said he had not seen the suspect before Sunday, but during the service he noticed Polite going in and out of the church and even making eye contact with Germany. I started to begin to preach, and all of a sudden, from my left-hand side, I saw him move from the back to the front of the church. Then he set up in the front corner of the church and smiled at me. And all of a sudden, I just saw a gun pointed at me, and at that point, all I could do was run for cover. Suspect apologized to the pastor. Pastor said, I forgive you, and I want you to know I love you.
Well, at least he was polite.
I thank God because only God stopped and jammed this gun. Polite was detained at the church until Pennsylvania State Police troopers arrived and arrested him. During a subsequent investigation, police discovered a man who had been shot to death in Polite's home.
Oh.
Ah, okay.
Here is the video.
Oh, video.
They were running camera during the sermon.
I think that's the pastor's lapel mic.
Yes. And the one congregant with the gun, who needs to learn how to properly hold a gun. But that's another discussion.
Okay.
So he's lucky to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
So
The pastor or the congregant? Because
well,
there were a lot of people that went after the guy with the gun, too.
yeah, quite honestly, I'm surprised they were so subdued with him. I don't know if I could have been in that circumstance, but if you believe in the hand of God, which I tend to, there was definitely a hand of God involved there, because the fact that that weapon jammed in that moment is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bring these two unrelated things up because these are just two stories of hundreds that are out there every day of somebody who either has some kind of addiction or some kind of mental illness or something, doing something horrible that affects somebody else's life.
Yes.
And this is a huge problem, and we're certainly not going to solve it in a 10 or 15 minute segment, but I think it's worth a discussion of why it is that we're here and what we might be able to do about it. Because, again, this is just two of many. These are just two random events, but it's all the time and everywhere. And in the case of the gunman at the church, there'll of course be the cry of, we just need to get rid of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't stop the naked lady from breaking into a home and neglecting her children in the process. There's a bigger mental health and addiction issue.
Did either article, real quick, say if they had run drug tests or blood alcohol or anything on either of the suspects?
Neither.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was involved, but I can bet in the case of the woman that there was probably something on board.
Yeah. Well, it could have even been that she has a prescription medication that she was abusing or something.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that seems meth fueled to me, but
Perhaps.
I don't know. As far as the gunman, I'd find it hard to believe there's not some kind of mental health issue going on there, but we don't address these things. We sweep it under the rug and we pretend that it's not a thing. And in all of the various jurisdictions around the country, we continue to more and more legalize different what used to be illegal medications.
Yeah.
It is next to impossible to get somebody mental health and mental health help in the majority of the country.
Correct.
And now here we are. And again, this is just two of many. It's just two that popped out for me today. I could have given you probably 25, 30 different
and
stories.
It's not just in our country either.
No.
It's a problem. But the real quick, and then I know Eli wanted to make a point. I just thought it was interesting that both of the stories you picked, the suspects were in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know overarching statistics if in that age group these type of neglect or like serious crime events have gone up like over time over the last couple of years or not. But it is interesting, and I don't think mental health or drug addiction has limitations on age. I think that can happen to anyone. It was just interesting that both of these stories revolved around people in their 20s, mid-20s.
Well, you can, I suppose, make the argument that there's a problem with how we're raising that generation, or in this case, how we did raise that generation.
Yeah.
And it's one of my concerns with Eli's generation as well, is when we don't, especially in the home. And again, this is why we're doing what we're doing right now, is to have family discussions and learn and model that kind of behavior to others, because I think families are broken. And especially in a family, if you're not teaching morals, ethics, right and wrong, and you're not instilling that into somebody, and you're not giving them some kind of belief system. And at this point, I'll be honest with you, I don't care what version of God you believe in, or if you just believe in nature or whatever. You have to believe in something. We're hardwired for it. We just are. And when you take a young person and you don't give them some kind of deeper meaning,
or just hope,
or just hope, then it all becomes meaningless. And by the time they're in their mid-20s, they have no real reason or purpose. They don't understand why they're here. Nothing makes sense. So they turn to drugs and alcohol. They begin to have mental issues, and then we get examples like this.
Even if you just believe in science and don't believe in God specifically, there's still rules and regulations to belief in science or a belief in nature. There's still things that control it. There's still a chain of command. There's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you want to say? Eli?
I was gonna say, like, you said one of many. Okay, so do you want to know more specifically why all these like Florida man, Florida woman stories are like out in the news? There's like a more
it sells.
Well, no, not only that. There's a more legal
Are you talking
reason.
about Florida specifically?
Yes,
The
Florida
Sunshine Law.
Sunshine laws, exactly. So if more states opened up those kinds of records, we would be seeing a lot more of those stories.
Correct.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Way more. This isn't just like Florida is weird. No, there's a kind of a problem worldwide.
Well, the church was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, exactly.
yeah.
So if more people opened up their like police records for like public review, you'd be seeing a lot more of this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It'd be way more prevalent.
No, I get it. I think this topic fit well into kind of the whole reason that we revised this channel to be what it is now, and that's a concern about how families operate and how there should be discussion and learning and stuff like that. We're just doing it in front of a camera so other people can see it and maybe pick up something from it. But you know, to your point, I think it's great that you pointed out that these people were in like their mid-20s, and I think it speaks to how poorly we've raised a couple of generations now. It's not good.
Well, you had mentioned that there's deterioration in family dynamic, and that obviously plays a part. I think you can actually tie all three of these segments together very well, because the family isn't doing a wonderful job anymore in helping to bring up morals and ethics in their children. The teachers aren't doing a good job at bringing up morals and ethics in their children. And heads of companies aren't doing a very good job by actually trying to promote morals and ethics in what they're attaching to their companies either, because again, all of these things to an extent you could tie into the fact that you should have a respect for life and you should have a respect for education and knowledge and all of those things, and it's being disrespected in every single one of these segments to some extent.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Doesn't say a lot for us, does it?
No.
And that's a problem. You know, you wonder why the other half of the world hates Western society so much. Is it that hard to figure out? Probably not.
Not really.
No. We're kind of morons on so many fronts.
We are, but there's irony there too, because there's obviously issues in other societies and other countries, and
sure.
you know, even countries that have very strict gun laws, we know that murder still exists or homicide still exists, and you know, all of those things are still a problem. Those don't go away magically just because the law has been passed. If that was the case, then we wouldn't have drug epidemics, because technically all of the drugs that people keep getting arrested and thrown in jail for are illegal. There's already a law in place.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but a decade ago I wrote a whole piece on Australia and their their strict gun laws that they put in place in response to a quote-unquote mass shooting.
Yes.
And, you know, for all of the guns that they confiscated and the laws that they made and everything else, a murder did go down. It went down by 0.2 per 100,000. So barely a blip, but it did go down. But interestingly enough, since you disarmed the society, other violent crimes, especially rape, went way up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because that's just kind of how things work.
Mm-hmm.
But because it comes down to, again, you're not fixing the problem, the underlying problem, which I will continue to say goes back to family. That's where it has to start. How are you raising your children? Are you giving them morals, ethics, a belief in something, some grounding principles? Or are you just letting them do their thing, and then the next thing you know, they're naked breaking into somebody's house, or they're trying to shoot a pastor in the face as he's preaching about Jesus?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, we weren't going to solve this in 10 or 15 minutes, but I thought it was worth a little bit of a discussion because this is, in my mind, something that has to not fall on deaf ears. It has to continue to be talked about. We have to continue to try to figure it out. I know what the answer is. I believe it with my heart. It starts at the family level, but you know, I think we just have to convince one person at a time.
Yeah.
So if we've convinced you, let us know in the comments. And I'm not being funny there, I'm being serious. I'd like to know if somebody else thinks the way we do on this one, because I think,
or if you disagree, tell us that too. But
Yeah.
But
I'd be curious your rationale for the disagreement.
I agree. That would be curious, and you know, I'll have the debate, and you're certainly not going to get any negativity from us. But I'll tell you though, I don't see another answer unless somebody give me a compelling argument. I think it has to start at the family level, one family at a time, or we're going to continue to have drug addicts and people struggling with mental health and bad things happening.
Correct.
All right. Well, I think we're going to leave it there for tonight. Eli, you got any final thoughts? Anything you want to shout out?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at Elijah-Soule, so youtube.com/ and the @ Elijah-Soule. I make tech content. Also, Mom, remind me to call that exorcist for you.
Yes.
Beth, anything besides your need for an exorcism?
No.
And if you're watching a clipped segment right now, go back and check that out.
Yeah, that would be in part 1. Anyway, no, I'm good for tonight.
Okay. And my name is Dan. You can find me at DanSoul2 on Twix and pretty much every place else in the world. I've got a YouTube channel that has not quite launched yet, but will be coming soon. We'll be doing business content, so stay tuned for that. And if you want something totally different, we have a wonderful podcast that is hosted by our pet rabbit Floppy. Yes. 12hopflop.com, 12hopflop.com, and she'll give you life advice from the perspective of a rabbit. A lot of people love it. It's fun. It's different. Give it a look. So with that having been said, we will see you all next time, and hopefully a live stream that actually works instead of a recorded version.
Yeah.
But we'll
Like,
work on that.
subscribe. If
Like,
you...
subscribe, share, all of those
Yes,
things.
all those things.
Mhm.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.